PHP MySQL is one of the very popular backend technology, but it creates a bit of problem for the newcomers when you're working with OOPS-based PHP MySQL implementation. In this video, I will be showing you the very first basic operation of how to insert record inside MySQL using PHP, but completely in the OOPS format. I have created one file over here called register.php, and if I come to my database, I have got one database called blog-site with one table by the name called TBL users, which has got few attributes like ID, first name, last name, email, and created ad. So if you go to the structure, you will find that ID is auto incremented and the time stamp will be there for the created ad. So basically I have to give input for the first name, last name, and email. Okay, that is what the thing is all about, and right now the table is completely empty. So let me click this page. As I do that, it opens a new template where I'm supposed to give some input. Well, I've already inserted these values in my text box so that it saves some time, but before I click this button, I want to show you how is my table all about, or how is my application all about. So let's go to VS Code. This is how the folder structure is. Yes, the entire program has been broken into different parts so that you know how exactly you have to pass the control from one file to another. So right now I'm inside the template folder that has got register.php, and as I double click on this, here is the content of this particular file, and this is what you are seeing in the browser right now over here. It has got first name, last name, and email, and you can see over here I have given the values hard coded just to save time. Okay, so if I remove this, then completely will be blank. So let me remove this, let me remove this, and let me remove this as well. And now I will just reload the tab, and as I do that, you don't see any value anymore in this template. So now you can take input as of your choice. So how exactly it is working? Well, as you can see, this is not a HTML page, it's a PHP page, and the reason why is we have got a PHP code snippet inside this page. Okay, so let me show you how exactly the flow of control is going to take place. HTML form is there that is going to redirect to this particular path. Well, as you can see, double dot is there. Why? Because this file is present inside the template folder. So if I have to go and explore some of these files, then I have to first step out of this template folder, and for that reason these double dots are there. So it will send the control out of this template, and then we'll go to the folder called backend. Here is my folder called backend, and if I expand this, I have a file called process_register.php. so I want to target this particular file. So that means user, after giving the first name in this DOM, last name in this DOM, and email in this DOM as well, will click on the submit button. Here it is. So what are you submitting? You are submitting a PHP form, right? So once you're submitting this, so the control will automatically redirect over here. Well, as you have seen me making a lot of videos in context to Python Django, you know that in case of Python is actually a framework. Okay, but right now I'm working not in framework because this is not Laravel, neither this is a coordinator, this is a custom PHP, so everything I have to do from scratch, and for that reason we have to write this particular route over here. But if you're working on a framework, then there will be a separate file where all the routes are going to be mentioned. Like in case of Python Django, you have seen urls.py, whether it's a project urls.py, whether it's an app urls.py, there will be urls.py that actually tells you what to route. Don't get confused. Okay, I just want to say you one thing, that if you're learning one backend technology, you can easily switch to some other technology, and at this point of time, what better than PHP which you are seeing right now. But the only problem of PHP is that we are moving toward the era of machine learning, AI, and automation. So for that reason, nothing best than Python. Nonetheless, Let us get back. So this is the route that will be navigated when the user is going to click on the submit button. Okay, so what is there inside this particular file? Let's go and explore it. So I come to this dot, so the control will go out of the template folder, and then it comes to the backend folder, and then it comes to this particular file. So let me open this particular file. Well, you might be wondering, what about this PHP code snippet? For the time being, simply overlook it. Why? Unless and until you click the submit button, until and unless this particular file is not executed, nothing is going to happen. So when you load the page, at that point of time, this if condition is not working, and because of that reason you are simply seeing the template and nothing else, just the template, because PHP is yet to get into action. So that's the reason this code snippet will not work at the first go. I will explain them once we come back to this file. So let's move on to this particular process-register PHP right over here. So let me open this, and as I do that, what is this all about? Well, let me split this file into two halves so that it's easy for you to figure out. Okay, so let's see what is there. I just need to pass on the respective value that is there in the DOM element which I have given as input. All these three things. So the moment I hit this particular route, the controls comes over here. Well, I'm going to start the session because this template has got session, as you can see over here. So that's the reason session invocation is very essential. Let me tell you why session is required. It can have multiple functionalities, but at this point of time I need one functionality, and that is I want to send data from one file to another, or I might want to send some message from one file to another. So you can say the session would work as a carrier to carry some data from one file to another, and that's what we are doing right now. See, I said you already, this is a custom PHP. I could have done all this thing in one single file, but that will not give you the idea about framework. So today you are working on custom PHP, tomorrow you might go to Laravel or some other backend framework, and they are going to have multiple files. So for that reason you should have the habit to work with files, multiple files, and each file have its own separation of concern. That means this file is a template that is meant to do taking input from the user. That's it. While this particular file will do a different operation. So that means you are splitting your task into different files, and that is called separation of concern. So you can think like this way: there is a developer who is going to work at the HTML level, and there is a developer who is going to work at the PHP level. So we are separating the concern in context to the domain as well. So once I reach over here, you remember I click the submit button, so that means my method was of post type, and that's the reason why this is a super global variable, which I'm saying that the $server, the request would be, HTTP request would be of type post. Yes, it is of type post because I did click the button and have mentioned explicitly that the method type is going to be post. So nothing is going to be shown in the URL. So when I will hit the submit button after filling this data, you will find that the URL will have no data at all. It would just have the reference of the path, and that's it. After all, we want to protect our data, so we would avoid passing any data in the form of params, query params. Okay, so that's the reason we have to go with the post method. So now I'm identifying each of these DOM. See, $_post, first name, that's the DOM where from I'm going to pick up the data. And in case if there is any blank space at the beginning, suppose I start with a blank space like this, and I'm ending with a blank space like this. So what will happen in that case? In that case, the trim function will remove the space from either side. So from the DOM element, from this DOM element, it picks up the first name, stores in the variable, which is a local variable, picks the last name from this DOM, stores in this variable, and picks the email from this DOM and stores it in the local variable. So first name, last name, email got stored. So far so good? Yes. I believe you're enjoying this video, right? Okay, so now what? And that brings us to the concept of oops. as you come across the new keyword. And what the new keyword does? Well, it creates an object inside the heap memory. Remember this. It creates an object inside the heap memory. Object of which class? The class name is called register. The object is there inside, the class name is called register. So where is register? Well, the register is right in this path. Look over here. Again dot dot. Why dot dot? Because I'm inside the file called process.register, which is present inside the folder called backend. So you have to go out one step. So for that reason dot dot is there. So as you come to the backend, now you move to the folder called class, and here it is, classes rather, folder called classes. Yes, and get into that folder, you will find a file called register.php, which is actually a class file. So this is where the path has been mentioned, and since the path is mentioned, that's the reason why this particular constructor is going to work. Well, let me tell you one thing. Here is the path, and underscore underscore dir underscore underscore, what it does is it connects the current working path with this particular path. Okay, because this file is present in this particular folder, so that path also it needs to remember, and where it's supposed to go, that path too it's need to remember. So for that reason it has to concatenate, and for that reason this dot implies the current path of this particular file. Then where this particular file is, that it should remember. So that means there are two ways you can represent the dot. A single dot talks about the current path, and double dot talks about the path. You have to step one step backward, like you click on the browser back button. That's what you are doing in case of double dot. Okay, my intention is to cover this insert operation in one single video, so that later on if required I can come up with 4 different videos for display, update and delete. In that way, if I cover 4 different videos, your entire CRUD operation, the basic CRUD operation using custom PHP, using object-oriented programming, would be crystal clear. Okay, so might be this video is a little bit lengthy. So as I said, with this dot dot you come back from the back this particular directory, and then you move to this particular folder called classes, and then you come into the file called register.php. Sounds good, right? Okay, and what about these 2 lines? Well, you can omit these 2 lines. I was just doing some error handling, some error, like initially when I was writing the code there was some error, so debug the error, where exactly the error is. I wrote this particular stuff, so you can simply go and comment them. It doesn't matter at this point of time. Okay, so once you hit the button, the post request, the super global variable understood that the post request has been done, and look over here, you have got not double equal to, it's triple equal to. Why do so? Double equal to checks the content, but triple equal to will check the content as well as data type. Request.method is going to have the value called post, that's the content, and request.method is going to return a data type called string, and that's what I'm checking, that on the right hand side, do I have a content called post, and is this content is exactly a string type? That's the reason why I have gone for triple equal, checking the data type as well as its content. I found it's interesting, isn't it? Alright, so we created an object inside the heap memory. This is the reference variable that got created inside the stack. Always remember, the reference variables are created inside the stack, and that's the reason why you call them as reference variable, whereas in case of object, they are created inside the heap memory. Well, I do have a separate video in this regard. If you want, you can go and check it out. Okay, so now what this is going to do? Well, we have to explore this file, right? Otherwise, how do we get to know? Well, if you see over here, after creating the object, I am giving a call to a method. So if I click on this method, it will directly take me to the file called register.php. Yes, so let me open the file right from here. So let me close this register.php template. We'll come back over here later on because we still have the session variable to be explored. So for the time being, let's close this file and let's focus on this particular method coming inside this particular file. So let me double click on this and let me split this so that we can see this separately. Right now you are seeing the content of this file as well as this file. So from the template you came to this particular file. It already received the data that was there given by the user in the DOM element. I'm talking about these 3 DOMs, right? Let me clear this value. I'm talking about these 3 DOMs. So those values has been received over here, and now we create an object of the register class and we are giving a call to a method called register user. So now it's the time. Let's explore this file minutely because this is going to play a very important role. And here are we. At the beginning, again, you see I have given a call to another path, and that is, well, again, double dot. That means going out of the folder called classes, getting into the directory called db. Well, directory means folder, and inside this I have a database. I have a file called database.php. That's what I'm trying to concatenate with the current working directory, that is single dot. So this is the path that will talk about this particular file. We know very well when you're creating a class, you need to have a constructor, and here is a constructor. We need to have a method, and here is a method. So that is the content of this particular class. We have a property over here of by the name called $con, which will be holding the connection reference, and since it's a class property, so I have to go for a method access specifier of type private. So only the method of this particular class can access this property. We all know this according to the OOPS concept, right? Well, it's very important to go through all the pillars of OOPS, and the pillars, according to the pillars of OOPS, class and object plays a very important role. Along with that, polymorphism, abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, these things you must know strongly in order to explore the OOPS concept. So what is there inside the constructor? Well, when the constructor will get executed, the time when you create the object of the time of the class register, that's the time when this constructor will get executed. So what is there in the constructor? Let's explore that first. It is again giving a call to this particular file database, and it is creating an object of this particular class called database, and inside this class there will be another method called connect. That what it is giving a call, and the connect is going to return me some reference. That what I'm going to store inside the property. We know that this represents the current object, the current instance. So I'm calling this particular property with the help of current instance followed by arrow operator because this is an object, and we are going to initialize this with the help of this method which is present inside the database. So now should I open this particular file? Well, I don't have any other option, but first let's go and check what this particular class is, and then we'll go through this particular method, because as you can see over here, this method has been called right from this file. And here I'm passing 3 parameters. First name, that means this was there from the DOM element which got initialized in these local variables. That what I'm passing over here: first name, last name, and email. So before we get into the body of this method, I need to execute this particular line first because we created the object, right? So let's go and check what is there inside this particular class called database. So here it is. I double click on this and that opens this particular file now. Okay, for the time being I'm just closing this. I'm focusing on this particular file so that you get to see what is there, right? And I have to open this particular file as well. So what I will do is that let's split this like this way so that you get to see them like this. You have to understand the flow of control, how the thing is flowing. So we started our journey from here, then we came to here, from here we came to here, from here we came to here. We still left with one particular file, don't worry, and that is what I'm calling now. So this flow should be very crystal clear. Let me tell you the flow once again. This is the first file. This will give a call to this file. This will give a call to this file. And this will give a call to this file, and this will give a call to this file. That's how the process is. I know it might sound very confusing at the very beginning, but trust me, this is the way a framework works. So for a newcomer, a student who have just completed computer science or pursuing computer science, initially it becomes very confusing because when we work in our college, we just work on single file. So we hardly work on multiple files at the same time. Means even if you're working on inheritance, you do those classes not in separate files, but you do those classes in same file. That means all the classes in one particular file. As a reason why it becomes very difficult for a newcomer to understand this flow of control. Okay, but don't worry, if you just roll back the video again and again, you will understand them very minutely. So let's come to this particular file and let's see what is over here. Although again this file will give a call to this config, and this file I will explore, don't worry. Look here what is there inside class. Again we are creating some properties which are private. So these are all class properties, but what about these db underscore host, db underscore name, db user and db password? What are these? Well, these are constant. These are constant. So where are these constant present? And that is what the content of this particular file called configure.php. You can keep this file according to your folder name. That's totally fine. You can keep this inside. Like I could have kept this configured inside the DB folder also. It's okay. It's totally up to you because you are creating the custom folder structure. In fact, it would have been better, right, keeping this file inside this because this is associated with your database, right? It's okay that you can do it, not a problem. So let me show you first what is the content of this, and then we'll come back. So this is a very small content is there. I have just created some constant with the help of define. What you do is you create some constant variables. Just a second. You create some constant variables. So my database is present in the local host. As you can see over here, the server is already on. So this is the server which is running MySQL. So it is present inside the local host. So for that reason, DB host is a local host. We already saw the database name is called, let me bring you, blog site, and that's the reason why the database name is called blog site. The default user of MySQL is root. That's the reason I have gone for root. That also I can show you. So if you come over here, if you go to your server, you come to the server and you come to the user account, you will get to see the default user is called root. So this is the root that we are using it, and there is no password. That's the reason there's no password. It's blank. Okay, and that's the reason why over here I've written an empty string for password. There's no password present. So config.php is doing what? I'm just declaring 4 constant variables. You might think that I could have done that inside this file. No, you shouldn't do that because you should keep the file in a separate, just as I said a few minutes ago, separation of concern. That's what you should do. In case if there is a change in any location, suppose your database switched to some other IP address, so you can just come over here, you can give the IP address. You don't have to tamper this one. You don't need to know what is there inside this file, right? So it's always much protected that you keep all the thing in a separate file. So at the end of the day, you have created a file called config.php which has got these constant variables, 4 constant, and that's what I'm calling right over here one by one. And here was a path. So that means these variables got initialized. And I also created one con which I'm going to return, and that will come rather over here because now I'm going to give a call to my connect method. So this is a method that is actually going to create the database connection, and I believe you have already seen these things. Let me tell you over here. So this is my connection string. I'm telling who is my host. That means who is my IP address, or what is my IP address where my server is located. What is my server name? What is my database name? So from here it will get the IP address which is currently localhost, and inside that I'm using the MySQL as a database driver. So this will give me localhost. This is going to give me the database name, and since we are referring with the help of object, so that's the reason $this is there, and object always works on arrow operator. We have seen this in C language. If you are using a pointer variable, a structure type pointer variable, we always use arrow operators. If you are using a normal structure variable, we will be using a dot operators. So for that reason, this arrow operators comes from the pointer, the concept of pointer that was there in C language. So you can understand how important is a pointer concept, because that's how the exploration has taken place. Got it? But in case of Java, we don't have pointers, so everything will be in form of dot. Okay, so like I shouldn't call it a dot, but you should call it a period. Okay, nonetheless, since we are in PHP, we are following, well, this particular syntax actually represents more about C++. In C++, $this is there, referring to the object, and we use the arrow operator in context to the object. So here we are talking about this particular reference variable which is holding the database name. Here we are talking about the localhost, the IP address where my system is present, that is 127.0.0.1, which is similar with that of localhost. That's how the variable got initialized, host got initialized, DB name got initialized, and MySQL is the driver that I'm using. Well, every database has their own driver. So this entire string, look over here, is wrapped within the quotation. This entire string is actually passed inside this particular variable, that is database connection, DSN. I just wrote it as DSN, database connection. That's a short form, you can say so. I'm passing this as a parameter inside my constructor that is called PDO, PHP Data Object. Since I'm following the class pattern, that's the reason I'm giving a call to PDO, PHP Data Object, where I'm passing 3 parameters. So this is my constructor, which is system defined. So PHP comes up with PDO, and the PDO contains 3 parameters. The first parameter tells you about the connection string. So this is my connection string. Again, I'm telling over here you have got 3 information. First is the name of the computer where the database is located. Next is the database name, and the third one is the driver. That's what this particular parameter is all about. The second parameter tells about what is the username, that is called root. And I don't have any password, but still you have to give this particular reference, which is a blank string that I wrote inside this config. Let me show you once again. So this was a blank string which I wrote. So that's how the objects of the PDO gets created, and the reference variable is con. That's how the con get initialized. Once I create the connection string, once I create the object of the PDO, I just need to mention the PDO couple of things. First, whenever there is an error, make sure you display the error in the form of exception handling. So implement the exception handling in case if there is any kind of error, because maybe I have given some wrong information. So for that reason, how it handles, how the object handles when there is an error, and whenever there is an error, make sure you come up with the exception. Okay, that's what you have set for the PDO object. And then we are returning. Since I'm using try catch block, because we are using oops, so it's always very important that you give the call to the PDO exception. In case if there is any failure in the connection string, it will show you a proper error message. That means maybe the IP address was something else, maybe the database name was something else, maybe the username was something else, and maybe there was some other password. So if there is any kind of mismatch, then this exception handling will take place. Otherwise, what will happen? It will return the object. It will return the object, and this object will be returned by this particular function. Sorry, not function, it's method. We are writing the function inside a class, so we should call it as a method. So this will be returned, and it will be assigned to this reference variable right inside this file called register. So that's how this method was called, and that's how this reference variable got initialized. So far so good. So that means when the control will come back over here after the execution of this file, it already knows about the database connection. Now it just needs to store the data in the respective table. So let me close this file. So one thing got clear, that database connectivity talks about 5 things, that is IP address of the server, database name, the MySQL driver, username, and password. It does not talks about table, right? So just remember this, database.php talks about 5 information. Now we are back over here, and we are just going to store all these things inside my table. And what is my table? I mean, who is my table? Well, this is a table which I have already created by the name called tbl user, and which is currently empty. So here I need to store the data, and that is the method register.user is going to do. Really interesting. So remember, right now we are over here. We completed this particular file. We did complete this particular file. We are right now over here, and whatever it will return, that will get stored inside this particular file. And this finally will return back the response to my template. That's how the chaining is going to take place. Now basically I'm doing the backtracking. Okay, so right now I'm inside this particular file, and this is the method which has already accepted these 3 parameters coming from this. So what I can do now is I can open this file as well, so it will be easy for us to explore. Let me split this, because right now we are going for backtracking. So we are over here. Okay, let me make this width a little bit larger. Yeah. So first I'm checking whether these variables are, these parameters are empty or not. If it is so, it will return all the field required. Well, I would prefer you do the validation in context to JavaScript, but still in PHP and also you can do the validation. But of course I will not keep them empty, so it will come and get into over here. Now I'm going to check whether the email format what I have given is valid or not. In case if the format of the email is not valid, then this will be return message. Again, I'm telling all form of front-end validation should be done by JavaScript. Once these two things have passed, now we come to the query, which will evaluate whether the email that I'm going to give does already store inside my table or not. This is a very good practice because emails should be unique. You should not store two email of this by the same, right? So over here I'm going for select ID. So get me the ID from the table user in case the email, this is the attribute email, if matches with the placeholder. So who is the placeholder? This placeholder means this particular variable. So whatever is the content of this variable, which is my parameter, that is coming right from here, if it does replace over here. So this is a simple string, and that string I am going to execute with the help of prepare function present from the database, which is the PDO. So this entire call is getting stored inside my variable called $statement. This is basically called statement. In Java we call it as a statement, prepares, like statement reference of a prepare statement. Now I just need to replace this placeholder with this particular parameter, and that will be done by the execute. So over here you see I'm passing an array because there might be multiple placeholder, like you can see over here. So that's the reason why it is good to put them into a parameter, into a array. So right now I have just got only one placeholder, and this email is that. So I'm writing that placeholder variable. So this will actually be feeded over here, and then this SQL will get fired with the help of execute statement or execute function. If the record is already there, that means if already an email is already there, in that case this statement will go for a method called record count, and it will definitely be 0. But in our case instance right now, as you can see over here, we don't have any table data. So if I click on this, it's completely empty. So very naturally this portion is not going to work, but we will definitely fire this scenario once we insert some data, and then we are going to return this message. Okay, so this is not going to happen at the very first time. So what will happen over here? In this very first time I'm going to fire this SQL query now. Insert into table name, we have got 3 attributes because I showed you the first attribute and the last attribute will be auto generated. The first attribute is the ID, auto generated, timestamp will also be auto generated. Okay, so for that reason I will stick to the 3 attribute, first name, last name and email. These attribute name must match with these attribute name, first name underscore name, last name underscore name, email. So be careful about the attribute name and the variable names because they are all same. I did it intentionally, okay, because in OOPS we do have this feature where you can write the class properties and the parameter name, both can be same. Now the question is, how will you differentiate? Well, with the help of this keyword. Okay, that's the feature of OOPS. So insert into table name, and these are the following parameters, or you can say the attribute of the table, and these are the placeholders. So I created this entire thing just like the above SQL statement, and I stored inside the statement variable, and now I'm going to pass the respective parameters that will be fitted on these placeholders. The first name will get fit over here, the last name over here, and email over here. And once we execute this, it will successfully get executed, and we are going to return a message called register user successfully, user registration was successful, right? So where this message will be forwarded, that message will be forwarded right over here. So as you saw in this line, we are giving a call to this method. So from here the control is going to jump over here to this method, it will execute the entire thing, and then finally whichever is the scenario, if this is true then this message will come over here, if this is true then this message is going to come over here. And that's how this particular file also completes its work. Really interesting. Let me close this and see how we are rolling back. And now this and my template. So here is this. So let me put this file aside and let's split this. So that's how the rollback is taking place. I'm trying my level best to make you understand all the flow of control. I went upward and now I'm going for downward process. Got it? So we saw the data came over here, and now we are creating a session variable because I have to pass the message whether email is already existing or user creation successful. That message I have to pass inside the session variable. So here I'm setting the path where I need to forward. So header location tells me which particular template file this session variable should be redirected. So it should come, again this file is present inside the folder called backend, it should go out of that folder for /, then it come to the template folder right over here, and inside that I have a file called register.php and it is over here. So this is going to come over here, and finally after this you simply exit from this file, and that's it. Why I've written over here else? Because in case if it was not a post request, then it would have been a get request. But since this is coming after the button click, after this button click, so it will of course be a post request. But as a practice, I've written the else part, and I've simply written the template with an exit. Nothing else I've done it. Okay, so you can omit this part as well, but still it's good to write it. So finally the data came over here, the session variable came over here. So that means this file I can say goodbye, right? So now over here I am. So this my session variable is already set. Yes, because it was holding the parameter. So for that reason I have written over here if statement, that means if the session variable is set, that means when you will run this particular file for the first time, at that point of time the session variable will not be set because you did not give any import. So once you click the back button, then the entire upward movement take place, and finally the backward movement will take place. So session variable is already set. I've given a call to a Bootstrap. Well, let me explain this part. Before that I will execute, then it will be more easy for me to understand. Okay, so let me give the first name one more time. Let's go and check the table. It's completely blank. So let's go for Peter Parker. I love this character, amazing character, so sweet. So gmail.com and register. User register successfully. Bingo. And there is no change in the route. That is something what I was talking about. Your route should not get changed. Come to your database, come to your code and see over here. This is a Bootstrap color is coming. So div class Bootstrap. So that's the reason this line just end over here to check whether the session variable is initialized or not. Yes, it is. Then give a call to the Bootstrap. So I came out of the PHP code segment. It gave a call to Bootstrap, and again I'm giving a call to the PHP. I'm giving a call to PHP to print the session variable content. Well, if you see over here, I've given a call to HTML special characters. Why this is so? Because I'm trying to avoid cross script. Cross script means you can pass some HTML text over here, but if you does that, then it will be avoided. It will prevent. Means many times what happens, the hackers or the chatbot, they can put some invalid characters over here, and those characters should be handled very properly. For that reason, cross-site scripting should be implemented. So HTML special characters like question mark, less than, greater than, these characters will be protected. They will not get fired. So here I'm saying that I'm implementing cross-site scripting, and then I'm printing this session value. So whatever the data was there, so is user query successful, that's the reason message came, right? And once I've done that, then I should unset the session variable because it has already printed the message, so there is no point of carrying that message again. So make sure you remove the content of the session variable. So after the work is done, the session variable will not hold the content anymore. That's how this particular code snippet is working. So the record got saved over here. Let's come to my table and let's reload the table once again to see, yes, insertion has taken place successfully. Really interesting. So let's come over here again and let me go for one more data, and this time suppose I love another character that's called Kabir Khan. This is something which is amazing character. This is one inspirational character for me. So gmail.com, and this also record gets saved successfully. Great. So I come over here, reload the table, and as I do that, you see the record number 2. Let's try to insert the same record, previous record once again, and let's see what happened this time. So let's come over here, Peter Parker, and the email ID is peter@gmail.com, and let's click on this and see email already exists. So you saw how the protection has been taken. So let's click no new record has been added. So let's add the last record, and whose name? I love my name. So Swaroop Shah, and the email ID is swaroop@gmail.com, and I click on the register button. Bingo, user registration successful. Let's come over here, let's reload the table, and the insertion has taken place successfully. So far so good, right? So I have shown you how to implement this was the first part, that is the CRUD operation, and I've shown you how to implement object-oriented programming with the following file structure. So I believe this video will be helpful to you all. Thank you very much. Wait for my next video. Until then, have a nice time. Bye bye.